Marcus Chen stood before the towering crystalline gates of the High Wind estate, his single battered suitcase feeling heavier with each passing second. The structure beyond wasn't merely a mansion, it was an architectural marvel that seemed to grow organically from the cliff top. All flowing curves and impossible angles that mimicked the swooping grace of wings in flight. It was unmistakably a Varian design, built by a species that understood the poetry of aerodynamics in ways humans never could. "Mr. Chen?" The voice came from a small communication panel embedded in one of the gate pillars. "Please proceed to the main entrance." The gates opened silently, and Marcus walked up a path that curved like a feather's rake's. 6 months ago, he'd been a rising star in aerospace engineering, heading a team developing next-generation flight systems for Earth's colonial expansion. Then came the Meridian disaster, his prototype's catastrophic failure that killed 3 test pilots and destroyed a $1 billion facility. The investigation had cleared him of criminal negligence, but his career was finished. No one wanted to hire the engineer whose dream had become a nightmare. When the employment agency contacted him about an estate manager position for an off-world family, he'd almost declined. But desperation had a way of making choices for you. The salary was modest by his former standards, but it came with room and board and, most importantly, anonymity. The Avarians likely had never heard of the Meridian disaster. The main entrance doors opened as he approached, revealing a figure that made Marcus catch his breath. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her body covered in iridescent feathers that shifted from deep sapphire to violet, depending on the light. Her face was elegantly humanoid, with large golden eyes and a small, curved beak where a human nose and mouth would be, to magnificent wings, each spanning at least 12 feet, were folded gracefully against her back. She wore a flowing garment that accommodated her wings, while maintaining an air of sophisticated elegance. "Mr. Chen," she said, her voice melodic with harmonics impossible for human vocal cords. "I am Velora Winsinger. Welcome to High Wind Estate." Marcus bowed slightly, remembering the cultural briefing he'd studied. "Lady Velora, thank you for this opportunity." Her golden eyes studied him with an intensity that made him feel like a specimen under examination. "Your credentials are adequate for the position. My previous estate manager returned to his homeworld for family reasons. I require someone efficient, discreet, and most importantly, someone who will not treat my daughter as a curiosity or object of pity." "Your daughter?" Marcus asked carefully. Velora's feathers ruffled slightly, a sign of distress, he recalled. "Skyra. She is 14 in your years. There was an accident 3 years ago during a traditional flight ceremony. Her wings were damaged. She cannot fly." The weight of those words hung in the air. For an Avarian, flight wasn't merely transportation, it was identity, culture, spirituality. An Avarian who couldn't fly was like a fish that couldn't swim, a bird in a cage of its own body. "I see," Marcus said softly. "I'll do everything I can to help her feel comfortable." "See that you do," Velora replied, her tone cooling. "I've hired 7 assistants in the past year. None lasted more than 2 months. Humans especially seem to struggle with the concept that not everything can be fixed." With your relentless optimism and crude technology, Marcus felt the barb but said nothing. She was grieving, protective, and probably exhausted from disappointing treatments and failed promises. He'd seen that same desperate hope crushed too many times. In the eyes of the Meridian victims' families, Velora led him through corridors that defied conventional architecture. The ceiling soared impossibly high, with open airways that allowed flight between levels. Perches replaced many traditional seats, and windows were positioned to catch thermal currents. It was beautiful and alien, and heartbreaking when Marcus remembered that the young girl living here could no longer use any of it as intended. "Your quarters," Velora announced, opening a door to a surprisingly comfortable room with human-appropriate furniture. Skyra's chambers are on the eastern wing. She wakes at dawn and requires assistance with her morning routine. I've prepared a detailed schedule of her needs, therapy sessions, and educational requirements. I expect punctuality and professionalism. Of course, Marcus replied. "When will I meet Skyra?" Now came a voice from behind them. Marcus turned to see a young Avarian hovering in the corridor, not flying, he realized, but seated in some kind of anti-gravity chair. She was smaller than her mother, her feathers a lighter blue that faded to white at the edges. Her wings, Marcus noticed with a pang of sorrow, were folded awkwardly against her back. The primary feathers bent at unnatural angles. Even from a distance, he could see the scar tissue that disrupted the smooth line of her wing structure. But it was her eyes, the same striking gold as her mother's, that captured him. They held no self-pity, no resignation. Instead, they blazed with curiosity and keen intelligence. "You're the new estate manager?" Skyra asked, guiding her chair closer with practiced ease. "The agency said you were an engineer." "What kind?" "Aerospace," Marcus answered honestly. "I designed flight systems." Skyra's eyes widened. "Really? Then maybe you can explain why the idiots at the Avarian Medical Institute keep trying to fix my wings with biological regeneration instead of mechanical augmentation. I've told them 12 times that the nerve damage is too extensive for organic repair, but they keep insisting that natural flight is the only true flight." She said the last part in a mocking tone that suggested she'd heard it many times. Marcus couldn't help but smile. "You've been suggesting mechanical solutions?" "I've been designing them," Skyra corrected, pulling up a holographic display from her chair's control panel. "See, exoskeletal framework that would bypass the damaged muscles and connect directly to my intact shoulder structure. But no one will listen to a damaged child." The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. Marcus studied the schematic she'd created, and his engineer's mind immediately engaged. The design was crude, but showed genuine understanding of biomechanical principles. More importantly, it showed hope, the determination to solve an impossible problem. "Skyra." "That's enough," Velora said sharply. "Don't burden Mr. Chen with your fantasies. He's here to manage the household, not indulge impossible dreams." Something flickered across Skyra's face, hurt, quickly masked by defiance. "Of course, Mother. Forgive me for having hope." She spun her chair and glided away, leaving an awkward silence in her wake. Velora's feathers had flattened against her body, a sign of shame or distress. "You must understand, Mr. Chen, Skyra has been to 17 specialists across the planets. Everyone has told us the same thing: the damage is permanent. Encouraging false hope would be cruel. I understand, Marcus said, though he wasn't sure he did. In his experience, impossible just meant no one had found the right solution yet. Over the following weeks, Marcus settled into the rhythm of High Wind Estate. His duties were straightforward: managing household staff, coordinating Skyra's therapy appointments, maintaining the estate's complex environmental systems. But it was his time with Skyra that became the highlight of his days. The girl was brilliant, devouring books on engineering, physics, and aerodynamics with voracious appetite. She peppered him with questions about his work, his education, his life on Earth. Marcus found himself opening up to her in ways he hadn't with anyone since the Meridian disaster. "Why did you stop being an aerospace engineer?" she asked one afternoon while they reviewed her mathematics assignments. Marcus hesitated. "I made a mistake. People died because of my design failure." Skyra was quiet for a moment. "Do you think you could have prevented it?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "I've run the simulations 1,000 times. Sometimes I find the flaw. Sometimes I don't. That uncertainty, it broke something in me. But you haven't stopped thinking like an engineer," Skyra observed. "I see you looking at my wings when you think I'm not paying attention. You're analyzing the damage, aren't you?" Marcus met her golden eyes. "Yes, and I think everyone's been approaching this wrong," he said carefully. "They're trying to fix what's broken. But what if instead you built something new?" Skyra finished, her voice breathless with excitement. "Something that works with the damage instead of against it." "It's just a theory," Marcus cautioned. But his mind was already racing. The Avarian specialists had focused on biological repair. Because that's how Avarian medicine worked. They were masters of genetic manipulation and cellular regeneration. But Skyra's injury was beyond biology. The nerves were dead, the muscles atrophied, the bone structure compromised. But the shoulders were intact. The skeletal framework was sound. And most importantly, Skyra's mind was sharp and her determination unbreakable. "You're going to help me fly again," Skyra said. "It wasn't a question. I'm going to try," Marcus replied. "But this stays between us for now." "Your mother has given up," Skyra finished bitterly. "I know, but you haven't." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He pulled out his personal tablet and began sketching, his fingers moving with a sureness he hadn't felt since before Meridian. Avarian wing structure was magnificently complex: hollow bones for lightness, specialized feathers for lift and control, powerful muscles for the downstroke. But it was also, in engineering terms, a lever system, and lever systems could be augmented. He worked through the night, losing himself in calculations and schematics. The design that emerged was nothing like traditional Avarian flight aids. Instead of trying to make Skyra's wings work, he would create a secondary framework, an exoskeleton, that would integrate with her existing structure, using her intact shoulder muscles to power artificial wing segments that would extend her wingspan and provide the lift her damaged wings couldn't generate. It was audacious. It was probably impossible. And it was exactly the kind of challenge Marcus had thought he'd never take on again. A soft sound made him look up. Velora stood in his doorway, wrapped in a sleeping robe, her feathers ruffled from sleep. In the dim light, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "I saw your light still on," she said softly. "You should rest, Mr. Chen. Tomorrow is—" She stopped as her eyes fell on the tablet in his hands. On the unmistakable schematic of Avarian wings displayed there, their eyes met, and Marcus saw something shift in her expression: surprise, suspicion, and underneath it all, a desperate, fragile hope she was trying desperately to suppress. "What are you doing?" she whispered. Marcus took a breath. "Probably making another terrible mistake. But I can't help myself. It's what I do." Velora's feathers rippled with complex emotions. She stepped into his room, closing the door behind her. "Show me." And so, in the quiet hours before dawn, Marcus explained his theory to Skyra's mother, watching as the desperate hope in her eyes grew brighter with each word. Even as she tried to armor herself against another disappointment. When he finished, silence stretched between them. The specialists said. Velora began. "The specialists are thinking like Avarians," Marcus interrupted gently. "Sometimes you need a different perspective. Someone who sees the problem with fresh eyes. Someone human," Velora said. And for the first time since they'd met, there was no condescension in her tone. Only wonder. "Someone stubborn enough to try," Marcus corrected with a small smile. Velora's hand graceful, with 3 long fingers and opposable thumb, reached out and touched the schematic on his tablet. "If you fail, if you give her hope, and it ends in disappointment—" "I know," Marcus said. "Believe me, I know what it's like to fail when others are counting on you." Their eyes met again, and something passed between them, understanding, perhaps, or recognition of kindred spirits who'd both known crushing disappointment. "Then don't fail," Velora whispered. "Please, Marcus, don't fail her." It was the first time she'd used his given name, and the intimacy of it shocked them both. Velora pulled back, her feathers ruffling with what looked like embarrassment. "I should go," she said quickly. "We both need rest." After she left, Marcus sat in the darkness, feeling the weight of what he'd just promised. He'd sworn after Meridian that he'd never take on that kind of responsibility again. Never put himself in a position where his failure could destroy someone's hope. But as dawn broke over High Wind Estate, Marcus pulled up his designs again and got to work. Because some promises, he realized, were worth the risk of breaking, even if it meant his heart might break along with them. Marcus spent the next 3 weeks living a double life. By day, he performed his duties as estate manager with meticulous care, coordinating staff, managing Skyra's therapy sessions, maintaining the household systems. By night, he transformed into what he'd once been, an engineer obsessed with solving an impossible problem. His quarters had become a makeshift laboratory. Components salvaged from the estate's maintenance store's servo motors. Lightweight composite materials, neural interface chips covered every available surface. He worked with headphones on, blueprints glowing on multiple screens, his hands moving with the confident precision of someone who'd found his purpose again. "You look terrible," Skyra announced one morning, floating into the breakfast room where Marcus was nursing his 3rd cup of coffee. "Did you sleep at all?" "Defying sleep," Marcus muttered, rubbing his eyes. Velora glanced up from her morning reports, her golden eyes sharp with concern. "Mr. Chen, I expect my estate manager to be well rested and alert. Whatever personal projects you're pursuing in your off hours cannot interfere with your duties." "They won't," Marcus assured her, though the dark circles under his eyes told a different story. Skyra caught his eye and grinned conspiratorially. They'd been meeting in secret every few days, testing neural response patterns and measuring the exact dimensions of her wing structure. The girl's enthusiasm was infectious and utterly terrifying. She believed in him, with the kind of absolute faith that Marcus knew he didn't deserve. "I have a business trip to the outer colonies," Velora announced, setting down her tablet. 3 days. Pax will manage household affairs." She turned to Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read. "I trust you'll keep Skyra out of trouble?" "Always," Marcus replied, meeting her gaze. Something had shifted between them over the past weeks. Their conversations had grown longer, more personal. Velora had begun asking about his life on Earth, his family, his reasons for leaving aerospace engineering. He'd been carefully vague about Meridian, but she was perceptive. She knew he was running from something. In turn, she'd shared stories of her late bondmate, Kieran, a decorated pilot who died in the same accident that had injured Skyra. A mechanical failure during a ceremonial flight, she'd said. The investigation had been inconclusive, but Velora suspected sabotage by a business rival who'd wanted access to her shipping company's proprietary navigation technology. "Mom," Skyra said suddenly, her voice unusually serious, "when you get back, I want to show you something. Something important." Velora's feathers ruffled with surprise. "What kind of something?" "A surprise," Skyra said, glancing at Marcus. "A good one, I promise." Marcus felt his stomach drop. They hadn't discussed revealing the project yet. He'd wanted more time for testing, for refinement, for preparing himself for the possibility of failure. But looking at Skyra's determined expression, he understood. She was tired of waiting, tired of being broken, and she believed in him enough to take the risk. Velora looked between them, suspicion and hope warring in her expression. "Skyra, if this is another—" "It's not another disappointment," Skyra interrupted. "Just trust me, Mom. Please." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken emotions. Finally, Velora nodded slowly. 3 days. "When I return, you'll show me this surprise." After Velora departed in her sleek transport ship, Marcus and Skyra got to work in earnest. They'd converted one of the estate's abandoned flight chambers, a massive room with a ceiling that opened to the sky, into their secret workshop. The flight assist exoskeleton hung on a specialized frame, gleaming in the afternoon light. It was beautiful in its functionality, curved struts of lightweight alloy that would attach to Skyra's shoulders and existing wing structure, extending her wingspan by 3 feet on each side. Artificial flight surfaces made of smart fabric that could adjust their angle and rigidity in real time. And most critically, a neural interface that would read Skyra's intentions and translate them into coordinated wing movements. "It's amazing," Skyra breathed, running her hands over the frame. "You really built this?" "We built this," Marcus corrected. Your biomechanical analysis was crucial. I could never have designed the interface points without your input. They spent hours on calibration. Marcus had developed a non-invasive neural scanner that could read the electrical signals from Skyra's intact shoulder muscles and spinal column. The trick was teaching the AI system to interpret those signals to understand that when Skyra thought up, the exoskeleton should generate lift. When she thought turn, the control surfaces should adjust accordingly. Try thinking about the movement without trying to move, Marcus instructed, watching the readouts on his tablet. Just imagine spreading your wings. Skyra closed her eyes, her face serene with concentration. On Marcus's screen, neural pathways lit up in cascading patterns. The exoskeleton's test servos hummed softly, and the artificial wing surfaces flexed in response. "It's working," Skyra whispered, eyes flying open. "I can feel it responding. It's like the exoskeleton is part of me." Marcus felt a surge of triumph tempered by caution. "That's the idea. The neural interface isn't controlling your flight, you are. The exoskeleton is just translating your intentions into mechanical action." They worked late into the night, fine-tuning responses and adjusting weight distribution. By the second day, Skyra could make the exoskeleton's wings spread, fold, and adjust their angle with thought alone. But they hadn't attempted actual flight yet. That was too dangerous without more safety protocols. "We need to test it properly," Skyra insisted as they took a break. "Before Mom gets back tomorrow." "Absolutely not," Marcus said firmly. "We need harnesses, safety nets, medical support on standby. We need to know if it works." Skyra interrupted, her golden eyes blazing with determination. "Marcus, I've been grounded for 3 years. 3 years of watching other Avarians soar while I'm stuck in this chair. If there's even a chance this could work, I need to know. I need to feel the wind under my wings again, even if it's just for a moment." Marcus saw the desperation in her expression and felt his resolve crumbling. He'd seen that same look in his own mirror after Meridian, the need to prove that he wasn't broken, that his dreams weren't dead. "We do this carefully," he said finally. "Harness attached to the ceiling winch. Maximum altitude of 10 feet. First sign of instability, I'm pulling you down." "Agreed." "Agreed," Skyra said, practically vibrating with excitement. They spent the next hour setting up safety systems. Marcus rigged a harness that would catch Skyra if the exoskeleton failed, attached to a motorized winch that he could control remotely. He triple-checked every connection, every servo, every line of code in the control system. Finally, there was nothing left to check. Skyra transferred from her anti-gravity chair into the exoskeleton, and Marcus helped secure the attachment points at her shoulders and along her existing wing structure. The artificial wings extended from her back like metal feathers, doubling her wingspan. "How does it feel?" Marcus asked, his heart hammering. "Heavy," Skyra admitted, "but good. Right. Like I'm whole again." Marcus stepped back to the control panel, his finger hovering over the emergency release. "Start with just thinking about spreading your wings. Don't try to fly yet." Skyra nodded, closing her eyes. The exoskeleton's wings spread smoothly, artificial and natural feathers creating a unified surface. The sight was breathtaking. She looked like she'd been born with those wings. Now think about a downstroke, Marcus instructed. Slow and controlled. Skyra's face tightened with concentration. The wings swept down with powerful grace, and even tethered to the floor. Skyra rose 6 inches into the air. Her eyes flew open, tears streaming down her face. "I'm flying," she whispered. "Marcus, I'm actually flying." Again, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Downstroke, upstroke. Find your rhythm. Skyra's wings beat steadily, each stroke lifting her higher until the safety harness went taut at 10 feet. She hung there, suspended by her own wings for the first time in 3 years. And the sound that came from her throat was pure joy, a musical trill that a variance, made only in moments of transcendent happiness. Marcus watched through blurred eyes as Skyra experimented with small movements, banking left, then right, adjusting her wing angle to maintain altitude. The exoskeleton responded flawlessly, amplifying her intentions into graceful motion. "How do you feel?" he called up to her. "Free," Skyra called back, laughing and crying simultaneously. "I feel free." They practiced for another hour before Marcus insisted she rest. Skyra descended reluctantly, her wings folding with obvious regret. But her face glowed with happiness as Marcus helped her back into her chair. "Thank you," she said, gripping his hand tightly. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for believing I could do this," Marcus replied. "Now we need to prepare for tomorrow. Your mother returns in the evening." Skyra's expression grew mischievous. "She's going to lose her mind." "That's what I'm afraid of," Marcus muttered. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept replaying Skyra's flight in his mind, analyzing every movement, every response. The system worked better than he dared hope, but success brought new anxieties. What if something went wrong during the demonstration? What if Velora forbade Skyra from using it? What if a soft knock interrupted his spiraling thoughts? He opened the door to find Velora standing.